All right, strap yourselves in because today we're diving headfirst into some pretty wild territory. Project Stargate, a real US government program. They're investigating remote viewing, you know, like where you can see things far away using just your mind.
Sounds like science fiction, right?
Yeah, it does. But we've got these declassified CIA documents suggesting that they took this seriously for decades.
Yeah, and it's not like some hidden basement project either. This
And
document we're looking at, it was prepped in 1993, a briefing for the Deputy Secretary of Defense, laying out how they could use remote viewing for intel gathering, even military ops.
Deputy Secretary of Defense. Whoa, that's some high-level interest. So how'd this whole thing even get started? Where's the beginning of Project Stargate?
Officially, 1972. But the roots go back further, to the 1930s, early parapsychological research. Remember J.B. Rhine? His card-guessing experiments at Duke?
Yeah, those ring a bell. Trying to prove people could perceive.
Beyond the five senses, right? Exactly. Those early studies focused on ESP. But over time, they got more complex, like describing remote locations or hidden objects. They called it remote viewing. See if this ability, if it was real, could break through physical limits.
So imagine, you're describing a building in a completely different city, no prior knowledge, just your mind.
And get this wasn't some dingy lab. The Parapsychology Foundation, SRI International, even Princeton was in the mix. Actually, there's still research going on at Princeton today, led by Dr. Robert John.
Princeton. Seriously, that's a big name to be associated with, wow, something as controversial as ESP. What kind of experiments were they doing at these places?
Okay, picture this. Real-time beaconing. One person, the viewer, trying to describe a location where the beacon is at that exact moment, almost like mental GPS.
Okay, let me get this straight. Viewers in one spot, beacon somewhere else, and the viewer's trying to see through the beacon's eyes, using only their mind.
Exactly. And in one case, the viewer described this aerator building. Diagonal structures, a walkway. Super accurately. Matched up with the site perfectly. They'd never been there before.
That's impressive. Did they test how far this mental GPS could go? Miles away? Different country even?
They did. Long-distance viewing experiments. Both retrocognitive and precognitive.
Hold on, now you're talking past and future. Retrocognitive, meaning seeing what's already happened, and precognitive, seeing what hasn't happened yet.
You got it. Mind-boggling, isn't it? They had a viewer describe Urquhart Castle in Scotland 14 hours after the task, like they were tapping into a recording.
Seriously, that's wild. What about seeing the future? And he left with that.
They tried precognitive viewing too. One experiment, a viewer described the Danube River area in Bratislava. 24 hours before they actually saw it, they mentioned vertical lines, a large round disc-like thing. All details they later confirmed were there.
Okay, this is getting a bit unbelievable even for me. I can only imagine what the scientific community thought. Were they on board with this?
Oh, absolutely not. You can imagine the skepticism. Publications like the Behavioral and Brain Sciences, they debated the whole validity of parapsychology research. Even the National Research Council's report in 1988, Enhancing Human Performance, highlighted how difficult it was to study this stuff.
So, with all the doubt, was there any evidence to support it? Did anyone try to replicate the results?
That's where things get interesting. While some were skeptical, others argued they'd shown an anomalous process of information transfer and that it could be replicated. And remember, this is the Cold War. The U.S. and the Soviet Union. Psychic espionage was, well, intriguing.
Right, the Soviets were exploring this. The U.S. couldn't fall behind. So how did this psychic spy idea develop? Did the government start looking at real-world uses for remote viewing?
Yeah, you got it. Early 70s, research at SRI International started shifting from basic exploration to real-world stuff. And guess who was interested?
Who?
DIA, other intelligence agencies. They saw potential for remote viewing, gathering intel, assessing threats, all that cloak and dagger business.
So, psychic spies, really? Did they actually, weaponize ESP?
Well, they tried. Because it was so sensitive, they made a special access program. Imagine remote viewers trying to stop terrorist plots, drug trafficking ops, even enemy weapons programs.
Like something out of a movie. But before we get to those projects, you said even with the skepticism, there was evidence supporting remote viewing. What were some of the big findings?
What are the most interesting? The distance shielding effect.
Yeah.
A viewer's accuracy. It wasn't affected by distance. Or even if the target was shielded.
So it didn't matter if it was next door or across the world.
Nope.
That's pretty crazy. It's like remote viewing doesn't care about physics.
Exactly. Another thing they found, goal orientation was important. Viewers needed a clear objective, a specific target. They couldn't just see
Like
anything.
giving your mind coordinates, right?
Exactly.
Did they try to address the scientific concerns, though? All the skepticism around remote viewing?
Yeah, they did. The document highlights ways they improved the research. They knew early on there were problems with experimental controls, lack of a clear theoretical framework. They tried to make the research more rigorous.
Good to hear. They were trying to be scientific about it. So, refining methods, addressing the skeptics. What about the practical stuff? What kinds of operational projects did they do?
Oh, they covered a lot of ground. Counterterrorism, counternarcotics, counterintelligence, document analysis, even prediction, trying to see future events.
Prediction. Wow. So basically seeing if they could use remote viewers to gather intel on all sorts of threats.
Exactly. They even had some success with certain types of tasks, especially scientific and technical targets, like enemy weapons programs.
Wait, scientific and technical targets. I saw something about ST parameters in the document. Is that what that means?
You're right. They use that term, ST parameters, means scientific and technical parameters. Basically, intelligence on scientific or technological stuff, like what weapons research is a country doing? What new tech are they developing?
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. Thanks for clearing that up. So besides ST parameters, what else were the remote viewers good at?
They were good with tasks involving specific locations. If they knew where to look with their mind, it seemed to help their accuracy. They also did well with what they called low potential tasks, where failing wouldn't be a big deal.
So more like recon and intelligence gathering, not stopping a terrorist attack in progress.
Exactly. And lastly, they did best with direct tasks, meaning they were given a clear, specific goal, like describe the building at these coordinates.
Makes sense. The more focused, the better. But how did they know if they were right? How did they evaluate the accuracy of the information?
That was one of the toughest things. They tried different methods. One approach was looking for correlations between what the viewer said and the actual target.
So, like if they described a building with a dome and a tower, and the target actually did have those features.
Right. And they found some impressive correlations, especially with big targets like airfields and test facilities. But there's one case study that's really fascinating. It's in the document. A special U.S. Army counter-narcotics test in 1990.
A counter-narcotics test. Sounds like they were using remote viewing to fight drug trafficking.
Yep. This test had 395 sessions, a pretty big sample size.
395 sessions. Wow. What did they learn from that? Any positive results?
Out of those 395, 104 weren't evaluated because of weather or operational problems. But of the remaining 291, a good chunk showed some correlation, even strong correlation with the targets.
So even in real-world situations, they were getting hits. That's pretty remarkable. But if it was working, why was the program shut down? What were the limitations they couldn't overcome?
Well, one thing they noticed, viewers could give a general sense of the target, but struggled with specific details, like a blurry glimpse instead of a high-res image.
So more impressionistic than precise.
Yeah, which makes sense. They were exploring uncharted territory, trying to understand something. That challenges how we see reality.
That's a great point. It's like trying to describe a dream. You can give the feeling some key images, but the details are fuzzy, subjective.
Right. And another big hurdle, prediction. Seeing the future was way harder than the present. Only the most skilled, motivated viewers could even glimpse future events. And even then, the accuracy wasn't great.
So cool successes, but big limitations too.
Yes, and don't forget, this was a very experimental program. They were pioneers in a field that faced a lot of skepticism.
It's amazing they kept going for so long. Was it just the fear of the Soviets? Or was that something more? Yeah, it makes you wonder if there was more to it, a deeper curiosity, maybe.
That's a great point. And the document does touch on that. The Cold War definitely played a part. The 1991 Defense Authorization Act, it specifically told the DIA to gather intel on foreign research into this stuff, the parapsychological phenomena. They even had a database tracking it.
So they were keeping tabs on what other countries were doing. In the psychic spy game, that's a whole other level of intrigue. But was there anyone in the program who genuinely wanted to understand this stuff scientifically?
Oh yeah, definitely. The document has this report. From an internal science panel, they were scientists, tasked with evaluating the SRI program. And their conclusions are pretty interesting.
Really? What did they say? Did they shut it all down, or did they see something worth looking into further?
Well, they acknowledged the evidence for remote viewing, but they also said they needed more rigorous research and independent verification. They weren't ready to say it was definitely real, but they weren't dismissing it either.
So a cautious approach, but open-minded. It makes sense. This was way outside normal science.
Exactly. And here's something else that's really interesting. They recommended future research be unclassified. Open collaboration, they said, would benefit the field.
Wow, a big change from all the secrecy, huh? Sounds like they genuinely wanted to understand it, not just use it for military stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right. At its heart, science is about pushing boundaries, exploring the unknown, even if it challenges everything we know.
Well, this has been a deep dive for the ages. Project Stargate. A story of intrigue, mystery, and some mind-blowing possibilities. Who knows what else is hidden in those archives?
It really makes you wonder if even a little bit of what we talked about is true. It changes how we see human potential
Hmm.
and the nature of reality itself.
Absolutely. It makes you question what's possible, opens up a whole new world of questions. So to everyone listening, what do you think? Do you believe in remote viewing? Have you ever had an experience? That suggests our minds can do more than we think. And if so, what does that mean for you? Keep those questions in mind as you continue your own explorations. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of Project Stargate. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the unknown.